Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual. Today, I'm delighted to have Penny Power, OBE, on the podcast. Penny is a pioneer in creating online communities for business people. With her husband, Thomas, she created Ecademy in 1998, the first business social network, which became home to over 650,000 business owners, including me at that time as well. But then Penny's journey took a dramatic turn when they lost Ecademy in 2012 after 14 years of operation, getting disrupted by LinkedIn, which actually launched 4 years later than Ecademy, and frustratingly ended up leading to Penny and Thomas having to close its doors. So today we'll be discussing how Penny navigated the personal side of the problems that came with that loss, including those that impacted cash flow, but also her unique approach to stress management and resilience, and her exciting ongoing entrepreneurial journey and the amazing things she's doing now. Penny, welcome to the podcast.
That's a great summary. That is a great summary. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. Very open talk. So I know this is going out live as well. So yeah, strap yourself to your seat. Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Well, let's dive into that initial part of the story that I alluded to, because in your entrepreneurial journey, I mentioned when I first reached out to you, Penny, that you and Thomas were heroes of mine, because I remember being a member of Ecademy back in those early days. So talk us through that journey, like what led you to start Ecademy, what happened in those first 14 years, and that kind of journey from your perspective.
I'll try and keep it succinct. So there's a lot to talk about, I know. But basically, if anybody can remember 1998, the internet was just really emerging. I suppose it's quite similar to the conversations around blockchain and Web3 and AI now, where people are sort of thinking, well, where's this going? But we're aware it's happening. But in 98, things that many people in the UK might remember, Friends Reunited, they hadn't started, LinkedIn hadn't started, Facebook, Twitter. So there wasn't any of these. And the motivation to start this was not financial, which sounds a bit strange, but I was at home with 3 little kids under 5. I was doing some interim work. I've always been in the tech industry. Thomas, my husband, was working hard in the e-procurement and e-commerce area, helping American firms come over to the UK and helping them build teams and things, and doing a lot of public speaking. And he was the entrepreneurial person, not me. I'd always had very good positions in companies, and always looked over the fence at entrepreneurs. And as somebody who doesn't take risk, very cautious, Scottish parents, quite a careful upbringing, the entrepreneurial world looked pretty frightening to me, but I really admired it. And just one day I said to Thomas, we were having a pizza, this whole internet thing doesn't really excite me as a revolutionary thing, in that companies will always find a route to market, and the actual workings of a business will always find a way through. But what excites me is there's an opportunity for people to connect with one another as friends. And he thought that was quite a good idea. And he said, well, who would you want to connect? And I said, I'd love to connect business owners like you. And obviously I was really aware of how hard it was being a business owner to connect with people deeply. So I really believed in people having deep, open conversations and being friends in business, which is still my value base now. And so we started Ecademy. I started it, I got it going. I was very lucky. One of my clients that I had at the time offered to put £250,000 in very early on. Some previous work I'd done, I knew somebody who could be the CTO, just assembled this little team. And it was within 6 months, we were able to launch a sort of very basic site in 98. You can imagine there was no code off the shelf, so everything was self-coded, which meant we could really bespoke it. And Thomas, being the most phenomenal connector of people, one of his amazing skills, he was able to really brief us on what would he want if he was seeking something like this. And then very quickly, the CEO who had put the money in, because I didn't want to be CEO, that wasn't my role. I felt I could be ambassadorial and manage the community culture, get to know the members, which is what I love to do. He actually found opportunities for us to go on AIM. There was a big gold rush going on at the time. lastminute.com, Martha Lane Fox, Brent Hoberman, lots of the contacts that we knew that were all in the London scene. And then the 2 days before we were due to go on stock market, lastminute.com went out, and then the market crashed. And a lot of people will shake with that memory. Yeah. And it was really interesting because not only did it crash, not helping us, but also huge numbers of the members that we had who all were walking around with business cards that were like lottery tickets. They thought they were going to win, millions of pounds one day. So it was a really interesting time. And then really we just continued but building and growing organically from that point. We really believe, and there was no such thing as SaaS, software as a service then, but we believed in subscriptions. We believed in, the term fake identities wasn't around then, but we knew that people could fake themselves. We knew quite early on there was some pretty disgusting people that we wouldn't want in the community, and we knew that creating a safe space for our members was really important. So we charged $10, £10, €10 a month. Never really wanted to go the advertising route because that interrupted the flow of conversation, and we built it all over the world. And there were, at its heyday, 650,000 members, 5,000 events a year, some really great features. And yes, Reid Hoffman that started LinkedIn was one of our members. And actually, when he launched LinkedIn, we emailed all of our members and we shouted a lot about LinkedIn, as this is a network, a utility that you really need to have a profile on, even to the point of view of teaching people how to use it. So we never saw LinkedIn or indeed Facebook when they came on. So LinkedIn started 2002, Facebook 2004. Neither of those do we see as being a disruptor to us. What disrupted us was actually people's behavior, and people wanted to move from social networking to social media. And that really started when things like YouTube and people starting to understand about blogging. Then it became difficult because people didn't want to have deep conversations, and they weren't interested in their emotional well-being by having a sense of belonging or attachment to anything. So, it just became harder and harder because, and this is for anybody out there that has a dream and a belief, a set of values, if markets change, no matter how much you still believe in it. And I do think it's going full circle. We have a lot of applications to join our community now. We have a lot of businesses asking us to help build community, because what the internet has done is it's disconnected us emotionally and created a lot of loneliness. But we had to go through a whole series of hell coming out of that. A lot of entrepreneurial lessons in that journey. No regrets, but definitely has been a very difficult experience.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing it, Penny, because I think that for a lot of business owners, even talking about cash flow and the problems that can come with it, and being disrupted, or being worried about competitors, or just the worry of what happens if you're not successful, is often taboo in its own right. I think for a number of reasons. One, because of the worry of what it might signal to suppliers, customers, friends, family, but also often in the business building stage, it's a lot about talking about purpose, and it's about talking about in your mission and so on. And yet at the same time, there can be other things going on that risk that. So it's a really tricky place that I think is often not talked about too much. So I was keen to kind of dive in a little bit into that, and then I want to move into some personal strategies that I know that you've become an expert on, including in sharing in your book. But if we could start with when it became, like, in those last few years of Ecademy, like what did you see? What were the kind of symptoms? What did you start to see, and what were the actions that you had to then take, and what impact did that have on you and Thomas personally?
Gosh, loads of questions there. So the last 4 years were really difficult. Our CEO, who wasn't the investor that we originally had, when we didn't float in the stock market, he had a lot of difficulties with his wife and the investment he'd made, and we ended up buying his shares back, which was interesting because we had to dig even deeper to buy his shares back.
Yeah.
And then we actually promoted our CTO to CEO. And he was a great gatekeeper of it all, a really super chap, learning what it meant to be a CEO. And I would say he wasn't as purposeful as Thomas and I were about the business. But he was very good at looking at the money and, managing that side of it. But it must have been very stressful for him, because Thomas and I were fueled by the purpose, and it was easy to put our head in the sand, just seeing, the impact we were having on the people that were really engaged, and it was significant. And so, we look at our neurological needs, neuroscience, you look at, our dopamine was flooding, our serotonin was flooding because we were giving loads of love to people. We were connecting lots. So our oxytocin was strong. Actually, the ingredients that keep you mentally strong we were full of that. And it probably did mean that we were in some ways blinded. We were offered an acquisition by a German company that had come after us, but was running a a network. We turned it down, and financially that was probably, now in hindsight, a really stupid thing to do. I tell you the reason we turned it down is that at Heathrow Airport, at the hotel there to have the discussion, and they very honestly told us that they were just going to close it. They just found us an irritant across Europe, and an irritant to their growth. And so this is the dilemma that any entrepreneur has about what they dream and what they see into the future and the impact they're wanting to have. And to me, so many of the members, this was their home. Our blog site was the largest in the world. So it was Guardian, which then became the biggest business blog site. Ours was the largest, and actually it was highly SEO'd. So anybody that wrote a blog was getting so much business because they were number one on the page at Google. Not only that, obviously they loved the support and the mentoring they were getting from each other, and the learning and things. And to close that place, it just felt too much responsibility to do it. So we voted against that. And then we decided. Then it was becoming more and more financially challenging, and we realised that in order to survive, we were going to have to pivot. And so we went to Clydesdale Bank and borrowed some money to enable us, only a small amount, but enable us to get through a 5-year process of a little bit extra money. And at that time, we by then had given up our home, so we couldn't leverage that loan against our home. So the terms were really severe, and they were very severe against Thomas and I and the income we could take. But we were managing, and we carried on through about another 3 years on that basis. But obviously us incurring huge financial challenges in our personal life, 3 kids at private school, and just the costs of life, and often finding that we were needing to put extra money into the business as well as not take an income from it. But we were surviving, and we were turning it around, getting some advertisers, reducing the subscribers, increasing the number of people not paying, and it all was turning around. And then Clydesdale Bank sent us 29 days notice to pay off the final 2 years. And they did this to over 600,000 people, apparently, I'm saying. And I want to say apparently in case, but I know there's been a class action against them. So, but they were being sold. They were selling. Clydesdale Bank was selling, and they needed to improve their balance sheet. And there was a clause that enabled them to do that. They didn't do anything illegal. But we had 29 days then to try and save the business. And I think that 29 days was when I really lost my head. When I look back, it's almost like I see a ghost of myself running around London, going in and out of some of the cruelest of people who were basically like buying up distressed companies. And they're not the nicest, in my experience, people. And eventually we found somebody that would do that, and we were very thrilled that it meant that the Ecademy would keep going. Awful for us, but it meant Ecademy would keep going. But within a very short space of time, changed the brand name, a lot changed. Didn't want us to stay on it at all, to manage the culture, which I always find interesting. That was never, and it became a very different business. And the day we saw the brand name change was a really interesting day, because I was very upset. It felt like a little death. Thomas was jumping for joy because he said, well, we'll no longer be associated with
whatever happens next. Yeah.
Because if it had carried on, our brand would be very, very linked to it. So in that, what the lessons is a huge amount of emotion when you build a business that's pioneering and evangelistic and purposeful. And it's very hard to look at the cold facts when you are in that situation.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I mean, firstly, again, thank you for sharing that, because I think the detail does matter. I think that for people to really get their head around how that can feel, where you can end up, and particularly, I know so many people who have been in that situation of chasing it down, right? Where exactly in the situation that you described, where you say, we knew that things weren't looking great. It's not like you're painting a picture of, we could just see just around the next corner, then everything's great financially. It's that you're pursuing it on the basis of purpose and what you're doing for the community. And so I suspect that in your situation, if I could have, if someone could have come along and said, here's what the future looks like, it doesn't become a raging financial success, but it stays static and you can carry on doing amazing things for people, I suspect you'd have been over the moon with that. That would have been a good result, because albeit that it doesn't become a unicorn, it would have continued doing amazing things. And I think the problem, as you say, is when you're so passionate about it, then not being able to see the financials to go along and having to chase it down is so painful. I mean, how did you manage the personal stress of dealing with the business side of it, but also the significant cash challenges that you had? As you said, at that point, you'd have to give up the house, you'd have to secure debt against you personally. How were you able to deal with that, and what have you learned since then to be able to build that kind of level of resilience? Because for some people right now listening that might be in their own version of that, perhaps their business is getting disrupted by AI right now, for example, they'll be in their own version of that, and it might be the first time they've had to deal with that. So how did you
I think you have to be brave enough to really stare it in the face. That's the first thing. And the first thing I did, I called it my monster spreadsheet. And I literally had a spreadsheet that had, so all of our debt was to credit card companies. And I literally just listed all of them. I mean, people say, why didn't you go bankrupt? And we could have. We could have gone personally bankrupt. And actually, bankrupt terms are not that challenging nowadays. However, there was a sense, Thomas and I quite high morals, I suppose. I don't know. For us personally, I'm not judging anyone else. We didn't feel that we could go out and be business people if we had not confronted this challenge that we had in front of us. And we wanted to pay it back. I mean, I was brought up, as I said, by Scottish parents, and we lived in a little village, and I had to, I went to buy a pint of milk and I'd cycled 2 miles to it. If I was 1p under, my mum would make me cycle all the way back with that 1p, even though the lady in the shop babysat for us. She knew us so well. Debt was not something that I was comfortable with. And as I said right at the beginning, I was a risk adverse person. So I created this monster spreadsheet, and literally it had the months of the year across the top. And it had all the debt, and then we had the layer of income, and how much of our income from work we were now doing could be proportioned to paying off the debt. And it took from 2012 to 2018 to pay off the 1.5 million plus, obviously the income that we needed to survive. So we went into an abundant situation with consulting and speaking and another business that I created, and we very proud got to 2018, and we sat by our fire in our sitting room and burnt the spreadsheet, printed it off and burnt it.
Nice.
And that was very special. That was a really special moment. So I think you've got to you've really got to look at your cash flow, and you've got to see what are you doing with that cash flow. And the other thing is, I wrote this book, Business is Personal, in 2018. And it was a point at which not only have we gone through financial stress, we'd gone through a huge amount of personal traumas in our family and extended family. And it was 2018, I decided, right, Thomas actually got cancer and he was going through chemo. And I decided I need to have a little bit of a moment to look at this huge journey, which had not just, the stress hadn't just started in 2012. It had been years leading up to that. And part of it was just thinking, business is personal. And somebody had once said to me, it was actually an investor in the second business I started, it's not personal penny, it's just business. And I think that is just such an old-fashioned way of looking at business. And I knew I was in for hell with this new investor when that happened, and I was. And I think it's a big part of my book is about how do you personally define success. And Thomas and I, for a long time, felt like unsuccessful people. We felt we'd lost our identity, we had failed, and all of these very self-destructive words. But actually, when we looked at what is our definition of success, it's not all about money. And also, my ambitions before I started Ecademy were not to be a unicorn or globally known or be very wealthy. It's not one of my major drivers. I want a comfortable life and I wanted to educate my children well, and that takes enough money, but I'm not needing to show my wealth. I don't need wealth that is obvious or unnecessary. And I think a lot of us create more pressures on us through that. And so it was also redefining. And as there's a little story, which I don't know how much time we've got left, but
go ahead. I'd love you to share. Yeah.
I heard on Radio 4 a brilliant program about 5 years ago, and it was a neuroscientist was doing a talk, and he brought somebody up from the audience, and he said, here, I just want to give you £20. And this person said, wow, thank you so much. And they said, in fact, I want to give you 30. And anyway, by the end of it, he'd given her 70. And then he said, oh, go and sit down. And as she was going to sit down, and she hadn't had to do anything, no work for it or anything, no pursuit. As she sat down, I was going down the stairs to the back to sit down. He said, actually, just realised I made a mistake. Can I have 20 back? So she went back and sat down with 50. But at one point she had 70. And he studied this with her and said, your dopamine went way up. And now suddenly you feel loss, not gain. And I heard that and I thought, actually, I'd never had the desire. Something had put me on this wealth and high identity. Because at one point we were valued at £60 million. So, and Barclays were going to buy us at one point as well. So there's all sorts of journeys we had gone on where we were going to have a huge amount of money. And I then thought, actually, that was never me anyway. At 33 when I started, I wasn't expecting, I didn't desire that level of wealth anyway. And so it was about redefining your values. How do you want to live your life? The type of clients you want to live. And that's when Thomas and I thought, Ecademy, we were the loneliest people in Ecademy because we couldn't connect and we didn't have time to, and we'd walk down London tube stations and people would come up and ask for selfies because we were a bit, we were on the front page of newspapers sometimes and things.
Yep, I remember.
And there was this illusion of us. And then we said, no, let's go back to community, but actually do it just with 100 really great people and know them really well and love them. And the whole sense of community is about love and connection and support. And then, so I think at the other side of anybody's journey that's listening to this, you just have to redefine your success. And I was, I think in my lifetime, I've been a great success, but not necessarily the financial success that some people would judge us by.
Well, I love that, Penny. I think that message around looking at really what you count as success and making sure that you're aligned to that is so important. If I think about some of the experiences of other people that we've had on the podcast and friends of mine, etc., I think that's such a painfully late realization is one of those things where you kind of go, oh, wait, hang on. I've been judging myself against a yardstick that I'm not interested in. I've been judging myself by other people's assessments of whether I'm successful or not. And yet we don't have aligned values. And I think that that's so important. And as you say, as soon as you start to look at your journey and look and align that against your values, like some of which you've shared, your values around building communities and doing what you said you're going to do, and making sure that you pay people back and so on. Like, those are things you've been excelling in all the way through that journey.
And the fact that I've been married 33 years and we still laugh in bed together about things, and our 3 kids, I just think, I think we have to be realistic. And also what I find really interesting is there's often a greater energy around the fear of loss when you have something than the fear of the gain when you don't. And, I'm 59 now. I want to work till I die. I love my work. I feel so privileged by it. And I'm in pursuit, and being in pursuit of something is what keeps you young and alive and excited and relevant. And I know, and I love the fact I've got time for my clients, so I know I don't want to suppress anyone's ambitions. And wow, if there are people listening to this that are just going crazy success, wonderful. But let's just make sure that it's not at the expense of some of your deeper values.
Indeed. And of course, it's funny that you even say, some people listen to this having crazy success, but of course it's still all relative, right? Like, I know people who have built businesses and have gone from, 10 people to 50 people in really short periods of time, which by most people's definition, like, oh, wow, if I could have a business that would grow like that, that would be amazing. That would be successful. And yet I know from speaking to them that they're not enjoying it, that it's affecting their health, that it's affecting their relationships, it's killing every other part of them. So we have to even be careful about, like, looking at that going, oh, brilliant, that fantastic success, because it's all relative and depends on what else is going on in your life.
Right? In 2001, I wrote a blog called Emotional Wealth Leads to Financial Wealth. And what I find, so communities work very differently to networks. In fact, I've just been doing some posts on the lone wolf, the pack animal, and the super pack animal. And communities are about being a super pack animal, very different. The lone wolf, obviously, we know what that is. They're hunting on their own. Pack animal hunts in groups, but they're still looking for the hunt. And a super pack animal is much more foresight. They pivot. They have emotional intelligence. They have emotional connections with people. And when I look at the members that join us, and some of them are in challenging positions, they may have left corporate and they're re-establishing themselves as an expert, or they've gone through an exit, and it could be good, it couldn't be, but they've lost some identity, or they can be an expert that's still on that journey to be able to find a really strong cash flow. When they come into a community where everybody is very honest and open with each other, and they get the nurturing and the vulnerabilities of others, and the key things about community is you feel significant as a person, which is a human need, and you get the sense of contribution where you can contribute to others and you can receive contribution, and plus other, obviously, emotional needs that we have. So I think that there is a big change happening in the world. And for me, it excites me hugely, because I think we've become a very lonely, people have become lone wolves. That's what people have become. It's not natural. And they've become, the world went to broadcast. And now there is definitely a shift towards deep conversations, looking for real people. And that excites me, because my whole thing is about how do I connect hearts in business. And now I feel, if I was 33 now, well, I'd build a unicorn, because people want what I want to do.
That's awesome. And I 100% will completely challenge that assumption that you couldn't now go on to build a unicorn. You do not need 30 years to do it, Penny. Reminds me of the classic story of when Pablo Picasso was in the square in probably Paris or something, and someone asked him to do a picture of them, and he did it in about 15 seconds. He does this picture, and he says, that'll be whatever it is, 50 francs. And they said, 50 francs? Like, only took you less than a minute. And he said, no, it took me 30 years.
Yeah.
And it reminds me that your ability to build and create increases over time rather than decreases. So I'm
Well,
looking forward to the next thing
wisdom's
you do.
an asset. That's why I think in the UK and beyond, they're realizing that we need to get people working longer so that's very kind of you to say.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more coming from the power duo yet. I believe. So
That's
yeah.
very kind of you.
Speaking of, there's various projects and businesses that you are involved in, and great things that you've been doing. I know that you with Thomas, you're running mastermind groups together via Social Power. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then also,
and then
sorry, go
there's
on.
the community BIP 100, which we started in October 20, and it was when people started to really ask for community. Obviously, promoted by the fact that we were all in COVID at that time.
Yeah.
And then we do some consulting with some clients on helping them build engagement through community, either with clients or internally with their staff, because quiet quitting is quite a big challenge. So, and it's really quite life-changing when the light bulb goes on for people about community. And it doesn't take a lot to really teach and train and coach people, because it is so natural to us all to be in communities. Yeah, it's really fun. I love it.
Fantastic. Love that, Penny. So for people that would like to learn more, I mean, I'd highly recommend that people check out your book, Business is Personal. And of course, there's also your website, which people can check out, pennypower.co.uk. Any other ways in which you'd like people to connect with you?
Well, one of the ways we BIP 100, because people can connect with us there and book in and have a chat with us. And, Thomas and I have huge heart for anybody that is going through challenges. We're not going to be transactional with people. That's not what somebody in a super PAC does. But there are connections that we've got and advice that we can give, and also just calm people's nervous systems down. So if anybody is listening to this and are finding things tough, they can read chapter 2 of my book. I can send chapter 2 of the book as a PDF. It's called Being Broken, and it will give them a lot of hope. And so if I can help anybody, I'd be delighted to. I can't bear people being in pain.
Oh, love that. Thank you so much, Penny. I really, really appreciate you sharing those and being such a giving person. It's super inspiring and has been for many years. So thank you for being you, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, for people listening, I'm sure you'll have got huge value from the advice that Penny has shared. I highly recommend that you check out our book and the various links. Some of you will know that Paddy and I have also written a guide for business leaders on improving cash flow that includes a long list and some detail around the processes that you might want to consider implementing in your business to help give you transparency on your cash flow, to help make sure that you're managing all the way through. Because that's one of the things that I've been learning through various interviews with experts like Penny and many others, that one of the critical things you need is that visibility of what's going on in the business and to be on it. And having that visibility created in the background through good processes helps a lot to run them to scramble around when things get tough. So do check that out. Other regular listeners would also know that I run a regular webinar on how to free up 15 hours a week, remove the constant stress of running a business, and unlock business growth, where the approach that we share is often described as a bit of a game changer for people. So I highly recommend checking that out. You can find out more and register for the next one at airmanual.co/webinar. But otherwise, if you found today's episode valuable, if you found it inspiring, if you think there are people around you that might value it too because they're in a hard place, and let's be honest, people don't talk about a lot of this stuff. A lot of us struggle with even just the sense of whether we're being successful or not is a big deal for people. So help them out. Please share this episode on social media. Please tag myself and Penny in. Let us know your favorite key takeaway, or just share it out there with the universe. We know that it's going to add a lot of value, and we'd really appreciate it. So please do that. Otherwise, Penny, thank you again so much for joining us and sharing your insights. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I loved it. I'm going to AirManual because I've got so many people that need what you do.
Oh, thank you very much. That's cool. Not the intention, but awesome.
I know. It's brilliant.
Fantastic. And otherwise, for everyone else, until next time. Have fun.